What makes a great final mission? Tactical Breach Wizards and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom both have excellent final missions, and today I'm going to dive into why. Obviously, endgame spoilers for both games ahead. Tactical Breach Wizards' final mission was the inspiration for this video, so I'll talk more about that. And I chose Tears to show how the ideas I'll present are implemented in a completely different game. Plus, I already have footage of it. What do I mean by the final mission? It is not just the final boss, but also the lead up to it. In Tears, it is everything from the moment you enter the depths below Hyrule Castle to defeating Ganondorf. Wizards' final mission is a heist, for lack of a better word, comprised of 3 components: the roof, the vault, and the mines. The objectives are to destroy the mined mana and its source and take down Liv, an absurdly powerful speed wizard who can dodge all your attacks and revive herself if she dies. So what makes a great final mission? DesignDoc, a delightful channel about video game design, has several videos about boss design he's put into a convenient playlist for you to binge watch all at once. The first video on the list states, "A good boss fight has 3 roles: a test of skill, a narrative device, and a change of pace." This is a solid baseline to begin with, which applies to both bosses and final missions. Let's go through these one by one. So first, are the depths below Hyrule Castle a test of skill? Very much so. It's the hardest part of the game. You have to traverse through a long gauntlet of enemies, most of which are gloomy, as is the environment. There's no way to heal besides being prepared with your own cooking, and you lose your sage helpers partway down. You have to do it yourself. Then there are some huge battles with hordes of enemies right before Ganondorf. Ganondorf himself is relatively tough, with his health bar so huge I thought the game had bugged. And he's more difficult than his phantoms because he keeps avoiding your flurry rush. Now, is Wizards' final mission a test of skill? The simple answer is yes, but for a puzzle game, skill isn't really the right word to use. A test of understanding is more apt. A test that asks, has the player understood the mechanics completely? And are they able to apply their understanding in a creative way? The final part of the mission, the fight with Liv, does this wonderfully. Liv has the unique ability to swap places with her closest enemy whenever she's directly targeted by an attack. So the player has to think about how their character abilities can be used to simultaneously target the person closest to Liv as well as Liv herself, with a single action, but also do it in such a way that the character who Liv switches with doesn't get hurt too badly. I can't understate how ingenious this idea is. I've played my fair share of grid-based turn-based tactics games, and I can't think of any that come close to this level of novelty for the final mission while still maintaining the core of their mechanical systems. Even XCOM 2, considered by many to be the greatest GBTBTG, just introduces a new unit, the Avatar, which doesn't do anything new, really. So yeah, well done Wizards. Well done. Next, does the final mission work narratively? Of course, the answer is yes for both games. I don't think you need me to tell you about Tears' narrative. Again, I'll just say it was nice to come back to where I started and finally be able to reveal what was behind these boulders. And finding Zelda's dropped torch at the bottom of this pit was a pleasant touch. I'll talk a little more about Wizards' narrative. Liv, the antagonist, wants to take over Meadow, a country with a huge mana vein underground, to build a super soldier army and use it for good, or so she says. Meadow has been at constant war due to worldwide demand for its bountiful supply of mana. The subplot involves the Meadow militia, which, in an attempt to prevent further tumult, wishes to destroy the mana vein, making the country less desirable for conquest. Zan, the protagonist, wants to stop Liv. They have a history. You don't need to know the details. So he has teamed up with 4 other wizards and the Meadow militia. Their final mission is to destroy the mana source and take down Liv. This mission resolves the main plot with Zan and the main subplot together. It even gets pretty emotional. For a comedy. This is a game we're talking about though, so while it's great to see how the plot comes together, I think it's critical to turn our critical eyes to how the mechanics work narratively. Jen, the second most important player character, has an arc where she hates Steve, the traffic warlock, but slowly learns to overcome her insecurities and grievances. In the final mission, they are in the vault together on opposing sides, but Jen's task isn't related to Steve. If you complete the mission without taking out Steve, thereby showing that Jen has moved on from her hatred and completed her arc. You complete Jen's personal objective and get an achievement. On the roof with Zan and Liv, before your other teammates arrive, it's not possible for Zan to hit Liv, unless you have a specific setup, in which case he can defeat Liv by himself on turn 1. But we're going to ignore that. He can only win with the help of his team, reflecting Zan's relationship saving him from spiraling out of control. I'll come back to gameplay and narrative in a bit, but first we need to talk about the third role of a good final mission: a change of pace. There are several ways Wizards' final mission changes pace, Liv's aforementioned swapping ability being one of them. On top of that, Liv's chain shot is just a copy of Jen's signature move, so it recontextualizes a mechanic the player has developed familiarity with since the first act and asks them to deal with it from a different standpoint. Positioning in other levels is about staying out of sight of damage dealers, but Wizards' final stage is very open, with lots of low obstacles. You can't hide from Liv, so another layer of novelty is added through positional play. The chain shot doesn't do damage, but has heavy knockback. You have to find the right place to take knockback without getting hurt. Another change of pace is added through character upgrades. After the mission briefing, all 5 of your wizards level up to max and get a perk point each, offering significant qualitative gameplay changes. Also, Zan's anxiety dream is directly before the final mission, so in addition to the perk point, he gets a major upgrade to his primary attack. However, the most significant way I think Wizards' final mission changes things up is with the mission objectives. The majority of objectives in Wizards are essentially clear the room, i.e. defeat all enemies and seal the doors. They make up over 70% of the stages. Sometimes there's something added to teach you some new mechanic, but it's all with the purpose of clearing the room, like let Jen get killed in this room, which forces you to sacrifice Jen to enter the room and teaches you how to use Banks' resurrect ability. There's a little variation. Sometimes you'll need to use a laptop to open a door, and on 4 of the 65 clear the room rooms, you'll have to do it without letting anyone sound the alarm. Anyway, the next most common goal is to reach a green zone. It makes up about 15% of the stages. The rest only appear once each and are as follows. You can pause if you want to read them. When I look back on my experience with Tactical Breach Wizards, the 3 parts that left an impression are the first encounter with Liv, the mission to blow up an enemy train, and the final mission. They happen to be the parts of the game with the most unique and interesting mission objectives. I think what makes them stand out is not so much their originality, but the fact that my actions were actually representative of what was happening in the story. The rest of the missions are a bit of a blur because the aspects of gameplay and narrative felt a little disjointed. I just cleared a room and the story continued. This feels more like an indictment of the rest of the game than a reason why the end is so good. Anyway, I digress. Of the 13 unique objectives, 4 of them occur in the final mission. Let's have a look. The first part is the vault. Jen and Dal infiltrate the mana vault by going through the less well-guarded money vault without letting anyone set off the alarm. Once inside the mana vault, their task is to set breach glyphs around the mana stash, then get inside the glyphs to blow the ceiling, taking them and the mana down to the mine where the pyromancer is. Anyone else think Into the Breach inspired this too? Now we're in the mines. Banks and Rion infiltrate underground. There are no alarms in a mine, so just get there quick. After reaching the mana vein, the plan is to make the pyromancer the only person in the world capable of destroying mana. Destroy the mana. To do this, Rion turns into a dog to make him rabid and attack his allies. Then Banks uses her special ability to teleport an enemy to the vein, so the pyromancer unwittingly sets it on fire. Then they wait for Jen and Dao to fall through the ceiling with the mana stash. They die in the fall, so Banks has to resurrect them before leaving. Also before leaving, the pyromancer needs to burn the stash too. If he has died, Banks needs to revive him as well. Once that's all done, Jen, Banks, Dao, and Rion must leave using the blink ability one by one. I don't really know why they can't all leave at once. I assume it's to make their gradual appearance on the roof more believable. Speaking of, Zan is on the roof with his upgraded shooting ability. He runs to live, knocking goons flying as he does so. When he reaches her, he distracts her with talk until his crew arrives. When she is defeated, the mission is over. This is unique to clear the room missions, even ones with bosses, because they don't end if you defeat the boss. Everyone has to be eliminated. Not so here. All that to say, this heist is much more immersive than the rest of the game, and the link between gameplay and narrative is in a different league. Back to Tears, it changes pace partly through its spiked difficulty, but the most unique part about it is the sky battle. Teaming up with Dragon Zelda is a really fun, exciting way to have everything come together for a final hurrah! So both final missions meet all of Design Doc's criteria for a good boss. Great, but there are other ideas about what makes a good boss or final mission, I've heard. Is it threatening? Perhaps the boss doesn't actually need to be difficult if it seems threatening. Like Dragendorf, he was easy, but definitely threatening. Liv is threatening too. Earlier in the game, when you fight her, all you can do is ensure your necromancer survives, so she can come back and resurrect her teammates after you helplessly watch Liv decimate them. I particularly liked that stage. I was given no hints and had to puzzle it out myself. It made me feel rather clever. Is there spectacle? Does the game end with some kind of splendor? Dragendorf is certainly spectacular. That sky battle was breathtaking. I'd say blowing a hole through the floor in Wizards fits that description too. Does it have a twist? For Tears, Dragendorf strikes again. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting another pig. For Wizards, no. The plan works perfectly. There's no second boss phase, no surprises, nothing. Oh well, no point in continuing. Well, a twist is nice, but remember, the main character is a guy who can see the future. I think we can forgive this one thing. So far, everything I've talked about has been relevant to bosses as well as final missions. But what does a final mission need that a final boss doesn't? Anticipation, or build-up, and variety. Building tension is crucial because it allows for a satisfying conclusion and payoff to the narrative and gameplay experience. It makes the final encounter feel like a natural culmination of the story, and the anticipation makes it feel more significant. Tears does this with a long descent into the darkness, and the foreboding music that slowly builds is... well, just listen to it and you'll see what I'm trying to say. Wizards uses a detailed mission briefing to establish the stakes and prepare you mentally for the mission. Then each of the three components is broken down into two parts. Get to the place you need to be, then do what you need to do. Getting to the place you need to be has two functions. It lets you try out your character's new abilities in a relatively safe space. It also has the effect of building anticipation, much like the walk in Tears. Variety is necessary to showcase all the things the player has learned throughout the game. The final fight with Ganondorf is a sword fight against one opponent. It's very dramatic, but it only tests one skill. However, the build-up to Ganondorf contains a variety of enemies and environments, from vertical shafts to open battlefields, and it eventually leads to the sky. Wizards offers variety by making the player play with smaller teams of 2, then 4, then 1, and gradually back up to 5. In the mines, you also have support from the Metal Militia, adding even more team variance. Each of the 3 parts of the mission are in wildly different environments. The vault is high-tech with automated turrets, and Steve. The mines have mana clouds everywhere, endless goons, and the Pyromancer, and the roof is sparse and open with Liv. The different ways your teams synergize, combined with the mission objective diversity described earlier, and the environmental and enemy changes all come together to create a truly varied experience. What do you think a great final mission needs? Got any good examples? Bonus points for GBTBDG ones! I'd love you to start a conversation in the comments. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and hit that little bell so you don't miss the next one. Bye!